I sat eagerly in the driver's seat, feeling a mix of excitement and a hint of anxiety welling up inside me. Tonight, I decided to venture down this road to discover what awaited me at its end. The dim streetlights cast an eerie glow, creating faint images of scattered trees and leaves along the roadside, but nothing could deter my curiosity. I emphasized the sound of the car window, creating a creaking noise that echoed through the silent space. Its reverberation lingered, as if issuing a challenge to the encroaching darkness surrounding me. The trees by the side of the road were like lights trying to illuminate the pitch-black path. Yet, the feeble light only added to the gloom and tension. I could sense the eyes of the shadows, their gaze watching, waiting for the moment I would optimistically step into the heart of the nocturnal forest. I couldn't help but shiver as a cold gust of wind blew, making my flesh tremble. But I didn't stop. I continued to emphasize the sound, signaling to the obscure forces that I harbored no fear. I glanced at the rearview mirror, but saw no reflection except for distant lights reflecting back. An unsettling feeling pervaded my mind, but I didn't let it bother me. I knew this was a perilous adventure, but that's precisely why I chose it. I kept driving, surpassing the dark abyss. Each tree, each road passed by, but I didn't know what awaited me at the end of this path. I only knew that I couldn't turn back, couldn't falter amidst the shadows. The sound of water flowing from the nearby stream grew louder, creating a chilling resonance. The surrounding darkness enveloped me, murky and terrifying, but the sound of the flowing water became the sole anchor in this nightmare. I tried to maintain my spirit by focusing on the distant sound of the road, but suddenly, the sound of the flowing water seemed to grow stronger. The sound of rushing water filled my ears, like spiraling whirlpools of the supernatural trying to pull me down. I looked through the car window and saw a turbulent stream running across the road, like torrents of rain upon the dark surface. The faint streetlights reflected upon the water, creating a mesmerizing and eerie image. A sense of unease surged within me, as if unseen forces were silently causing transformations. The sound of the flowing water became an enchanting destination, beckoning me to move forward. However, a part of me felt fearful and apprehensive about the hidden dangers beneath its mystical beauty. A shadow swiftly passed before my eyes, causing me to startle. I quickly looked into the rearview mirror, but there was only emptiness, no trace of the shadow. My heart pounded, and a sense of insecurity overwhelmed my mind. I pressed harder on the accelerator, trying to escape the darkness that surrounded me, but the shadow didn't stop. It continued to pass by, further unsettling and frightening me. The shadow grew larger, taking on a sinister and indistinct form. I could see its outline, but couldn't make out any details. It was just a blurry mass of darkness, like a haunting footprint of a demon. The sound of the flowing water still echoed, but suddenly faded away, leaving me with a sense of loneliness and coldness. I felt trapped in a dark world with no escape. I decided to increase my speed, hoping to distance myself from this shadow. However, to my surprise, the shadow began to draw closer. It seemed to want to approach me, to devour my light and hope. I could feel the chill emanating from the shadow, like an icy hand caressing my skin. I couldn't bear the pressure and fear any longer. A hand suddenly appeared from behind the driver's seat and rested upon my shoulder. I panicked and pushed it away, but there was nothing there except empty space. I broke into a sweat, feeling the strong presence of the uncanny and the haunting. I couldn't comprehend the reason and meaning behind this, but I knew that I was being watched and thrust into a strange and dangerous world. I tried to narrow my gaze onto the road ahead, yet the hand persisted, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. It touched my skin, but there was no warmth, only a chilling coldness and soulless gaze. I felt as if I were being stalked by a terrifying entity, waiting for an opportunity to infiltrate my real world. I decided to stop the car, attempting to understand the cause of this terrifying apparition. I looked around and realized that the space around me had changed. The trees and streetlights became blurred, like surreal images in a wicked dream. I sensed the presence of a supernatural force, infiltrating the real world and creating bizarre phenomena. The hand suddenly appeared once again, but this time it wasn't just an empty hand. It held a piece of dark material, like a misplaced gemstone. I could feel the malevolence emanating from this object, like a dark power spreading around. I tried to push the hand away, but it stubbornly refused to let go. A glimmer of light emerged from ahead, illuminating the entire road. I saw a man standing by the side of the road, looking weary and despondent. I slowed down and offered him a ride. He didn't utter a word, just stared straight ahead, his gaze empty and filled with pain. An uncomfortable and anxious atmosphere filled the car. The situation was becoming increasingly strange and perilous. I decided to inquire about the man's condition and how he came to be here. "Do you need any help?" I spoke in a gentle tone, trying to convey care and empathy. The man remained unresponsive. He stood still, but from his gaze, I sensed despair and loss. I felt compelled not to overlook him, for in the darkness and haunting we needed each other to overcome. I decided to take him to a nearby cafe, where we could talk and get to know each other better. We sat beside each other, a warm cup of coffee in hand, offering comfort and warmth. I asked him about his life, about what had happened and why he was here at this moment. He looked down, as if wrestling with painful memories. "After losing a loved one, I fell into a state of profound darkness," he said with a hoarse voice. "I lost all hope and meaning in life. I wandered in the shadows, not knowing where to turn." I empathized with him, for I had experienced similar moments. The feeling of being lost and not knowing how to escape the haunting grip of the past. "But I saw a glimmer of light in your eyes," he continued. "It led me out of the darkness, and I knew I wasn't alone anymore." I looked into his eyes and saw a glimmer of hope emerging from within. I felt a spiritual connection between us, understanding that we could face the difficulties together. The man began to recount tales of the bizarre regarding the road we were traveling on. Stories of mysterious accidents and people vanishing without a trace. An indescribable sense of unease enveloped my soul, as if trapped in a nightmare. The man told a tale of a woman who mysteriously disappeared on this road. She set out on a beautiful morning and never returned. All that remained were scattered clues and terrifying stories. Rumors spread that this road was cursed, and those who passed through faced a dark future. I sensed the wary glances and apprehensive stares from the people around us. They distanced themselves as if we were outcasts. The loneliness and despair from the man became more evident. I couldn't sit still and simply listen to these chilling tales. "How can we escape from here?" I asked with a trembling voice. The man laughed anxiously, his eyes filled with fear. "No one has ever escaped," he said. "This road has buried the hopes and dreams of all of us." I felt the weight of desperation and horror permeating the space around us. I couldn't continue living in such fear. I made up my mind to confront it, to seek the truth, and find a way to escape this nightmare. The car began to lose control, accelerating at a terrifying speed and racing through red lights. I was filled with panic, desperately trying to slam on the brakes, but to no avail. The car continued to cut across the road with astonishing velocity, like a demon heading towards its demise. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, trying to maintain balance and control the car. But all efforts were in vain. The car became uncontrollable, like a true monster. The doors beside me swung open, creating an empty void, like a chilling black abyss. I turned my head to the side, only to see the man next to me laughing hysterically with a crazed look in his eyes. In the blink of an eye, he vanished into thin air. Leaving me alone and frantic on this manic vehicle, the nightmare persisted, and I felt as though I was plunging into a deep, dark pool of water. The groaning sound of the engine grew louder, like a growl of a beast in the shadows. I couldn't believe this was reality, it was a horrifying nightmare. Shadowy apparitions began to emerge on this road, their forms obscured in darkness, their gaze fixed upon me. Those eyes were haunting, evoking confusion and fear within my soul. I tried to evade them, but they seemed to persist, never straying far. As I turned my head, I saw these specters spreading throughout, like trapped souls on this road. They walked falteringly, but their eyes were filled with darkness and hunger. I felt the pain and desperation emanating from these apparitions, cruel spirits left behind in a world of darkness. Anxiety and fear surrounded me, making each breath heavy and labored. I felt the icy stares of these apparitions, staring intently at me, as if wanting to tear my soul apart into tiny fragments. I couldn't escape this haunting, and I knew that my only remaining option was to find a way to break free. My footsteps quickened, but the apparitions continued to pursue, never relenting. I sensed the chaos and despair in the surrounding space, and I knew that I had to find a way to escape this nightmare before it consumed me whole. The car suddenly broke down in the middle of a desolate road, headlights dimmed and engine completely silent. I futilely flicked the switch, but there was no response. The sound of silence echoed through the empty space, only creating an eerie sense of death and despair. Darkness enveloped me, creating a feeling of being buried. The faint streetlights cast peculiar shadows. I felt the chilling presence of this space, like a cold, threatening hand. I couldn't fathom why the car would break down at this crucial moment. With no time to waste, I quickly decided to leave the car behind and walk in search of help. Each step was filled with anticipation and anxiety, but I couldn't stay in this ominous space. I looked back at the lonely vehicle and left it stranded on the desolate road. Despite the difficulties and fear, I pressed forward, holding on to the belief that help awaited me at the end of the road. But each step presented a new challenge. With darkness surrounding me and strange sounds overpowering the space, I felt the coldness carried by the chilling wind, generating terrifying sounds and blurry images. Shadows moved within the darkness, forming dreadful shapes that stared intently at me. Desperation and unease grew within my soul, but I couldn't abandon hope. I found an abandoned house nearby, with broken windows and a collapsed roof. However, in this terrifying situation, it was my last resort to seek shelter. I nestled myself through the wide-open door, feeling the gloomy and chilling atmosphere inside the house. Stepping in, I sensed the musty air and the scent of dampness. Everything was dusty and dilapidated, like a symbol of abandonment and desolation within my soul. I walked through each room, observing scattered debris and old belongings strewn across the floor. The feeling that no one had lived in this house for a long time overwhelmed me. The faded paintings and the lingering shadows of those who once resided here seemed to linger. I felt haunted and terrorized by those memories, creating a dark and frightening space. I tried to find a safe place to rest and contemplate how to escape this situation. A surviving bedroom, a small corner of former life, became my chosen spot to set foot. Dust and fragments covered the bed, but I didn't mind. It was a stopping point, a place where I could temporarily evade the threats outside. Sitting on the dilapidated bed, I pondered the next steps. In this gloomy space, I had to find a way to break free from the struggle and rediscover the light. I looked out the window, glimpsing another path, a path that could lead me to salvation. As I tried to find a way to contact the outside world for help, footsteps echoed from behind. I immediately turned around and saw shadowy figures advancing towards me. They had no distinct form, just blurry shapes within the darkness, but their eyes were filled with malice and ferocity. Caught off guard and terrified, I wasted no time to think. I ran away from the abandoned house, inhaling the fresh air and feeling the freedom in each step. However, the shadowy figures relentlessly closed in, pursuing me like vengeful spirits seeking to capture my soul. I sprinted through the streets and alleyways, darting through sharp corners and tangled paths. My breath became quick, and sweat drenched my forehead. But the determination and survival instinct within me wouldn't allow me to stop. I had to find a way to escape this chase. In a fleeting moment, I discovered a small alleyway, bathed in light at the end of the street. It was an escape from the haunting pursuit. I propelled myself through the alley, feeling the salvation and hope with every step. However, the safety only lasted for a brief moment. As I emerged from the alley, I saw the shadowy figures waiting at the head of the street. They closed in on me at a terrifying speed, their eyes filled with malice and their intentions wicked. After escaping from the malevolent shadows, I stumbled upon a secret notebook in a corner of one of the rooms in the abandoned house. Within its pages, handwritten lines revealed that this path was once the site of dark festivals and peculiar rituals. Tattered scraps of paper recounted horrifying events and demonic ceremonies that had taken place here. I couldn't believe what I was reading, but the evidence ran deep within me. I realized that I had stumbled into a realm of malevolence, where the shadowy figures were not merely a peculiar phenomenon. They were the result of dark rituals and even darker conspiracies. According to the notebook, to escape this haunting, I needed to complete a special ritual. I had to find specific objects and navigate a series of intricate steps to free the trapped souls within this abandoned house. But in the darkness and despair, I had no idea where to search for these items. However, with a determination to survive and a glimmer of hope, I decided to explore the abandoned house more thoroughly. I meticulously examined every hidden corner, searching for clues and fragments that could aid me in completing the ritual. In a hidden storage room, I discovered an abandoned box. Opening it, I found peculiar objects: a red candle, a demonic mask, and an ancient book. These items could be the key to ending this nightmare. I decided to proceed with the ritual described in the notebook. I held the red candle and placed it on an improvised altar. Then, I donned the demonic mask and opened the ancient book. From its very first page, ancient words escaped my lips, resonating through the air. The shadowy figures stood around me, witnessing this arcane ceremony. They remained motionless, observing the event with an air of importance. But as I completed a sentence from the ancient book, a light flickered to life from where I stood. The light flooded the space, casting an eerie glow. Suddenly, the surroundings changed entirely. The desolate path vanished, replaced by an unfamiliar landscape. I stood upon lush green grass. Vibrant flowers blooming in every direction. Lush, healthy trees sprouted from fertile soil. A clear blue sky stretched above, unmarred by a single cloud, and the radiant sun shone down. I could hardly believe my eyes. Just moments ago, I had been fleeing from the pursuit of the shadowy figures, and now I stood in a beautiful paradise. Joy and hope overwhelmed my emotions. Perhaps I had succeeded, freed the trapped souls, and defeated the forces of darkness. However, amidst the dreamlike joy, I couldn't help but wonder about the shadowy figures. Why were they standing still, not attempting to attack me as before? Was this truly the end, or merely a trick of the underworld? I woke up in my car, my eyes wide open and my heart pounding. I looked around and realized that I was back in the real world, with brightly lit streetlights and no trace of the dark shadows. Memories of the bizarre and haunting events lingered in my mind. I couldn't believe what had happened, but I knew that I had escaped the fear and returned to safety. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw myself looking tired and apprehensive. The faint sense of the present suddenly rushed over me, like a breath of fresh air after a nightmare. I took a deep breath, trying to regain my confidence and determination. The question still lingered in my mind. Who were those dark shadows? Why was I drawn into a haunted land? Were there other secrets waiting for me to uncover? I couldn't let these questions haunt me forever. I decided to investigate the truth behind the abandoned house and the eerie rituals I had witnessed. I turned my car around and drove back towards the house, feeling as if an invisible force was pushing me forward. As I approached the familiar road, I pressed down on the accelerator, pushing away the dark memories and resolved to find the truth. But when I got closer to the house, I was surprised to see that it had vanished. There was only an empty field, with no traces of any structures. I stopped the car and looked around, bewildered. Had the house and those dark shadows ever truly existed, or were they just illusions in my mind? I realized that I couldn't find the answers right here. However, those dark experiences had changed me forever. I knew I couldn't forget what had happened, and I had to continue my quest for understanding.